Right. Hi, good morning everyone. Pleasure to be here and give a session on a topic which is very close to my heart, emerging trends in gaming. This is also, I'm lucky enough to have a part of this research that I do on a regular basis for multiple companies in the past, but very happy to present this to you. As Machu mentioned, I think it is a little data heavy. But we'll try to keep a focus on the big picture here. Just look at the data from a supporting standpoint and let's see what we can figure out. Before I start my session, just give you a short introduction. I'm Saikat Mondal. I'm the VP of Mergers and Acquisitions and Strategy at Nazara Technologies. We are a 24-year-old company, the only publicly traded gaming and esports company in India today, with diversified consumer-facing IPs from esports, gaming, ad tech, sports media, and the likes of it. Welcome again. Do enjoy the session. Please feel free to ask any questions in between if you have, or wait for the session. We have earmarked some amount of time towards the end. A good way to start this session would be to first get an understanding of the overall market of where it is today, and eventually then paving our way to understanding some of the trends of what can be going forward. And how long, how short, all of those are speculations and crystal ball predictions, but we will still try to take a dig at some of those topics and some of those inputs and insights. Let's start with games market in 2023. As you may be aware, globally games is bigger than movies, books, music combined. In 2023, the numbers stood at 184 billion, whereas the combined figures for all the other three media verticals, which are the largest media verticals globally, stood at $181 billion, which is a testament in and of itself as to where India is headed towards because of the sheer number and volume of people we have today. One other interesting fact to note here is that if you look at year 2022, the baseline has never been below the 2020 levels. So, which means 2019 to 2020, we had a COVID impact because of which the revenues grew, but we have never really reached a sort of a trough after the COVID peak, which is a great parameter because people are enjoying more, people are playing more, and people are paying more, which is a great news for the industry overall. We expect to reach 200 billion by 2025. Every year, every single report, this number keeps on projecting higher and higher number of years, but 2025 looks a likely year where we will reach the $200 billion mark in future. Looking a bit about the overall geography perspective, Asia Pacific is the biggest contributor in terms of global revenues. Now, this revenue comprises of PC, console, mobile, all included. So, Asia Pacific, no doubt, Japan, South Korea, China, three of the largest markets we have in Asia Pacific are contributing roughly around 50%, I mean, close to that, 6 billion short of that. North America is the second biggest market. The interesting thing to note here is Latin America, which is highlighted in gray, is projecting one of the highest CAGR growth returns since 2019. So if you are developing a game, do focus on Latin America, Middle East and Africa, as many of the Indian companies have done in the past and been very successful in doing so. So that's something which is quite exciting from an industry trend perspective. From a total revenue standpoint, across all the three platforms, that is PC, console and mobile, the revenues have remained flat as well as the user base have remained flat. So why are we excited and bullish about the overall gaming ecosystem? There are two reasons fundamentally. Is that as an industry overall, I think we are quite in a position in 2023 where the macro environments were not suitable, the investments and fundings were not happening. Every single person who is a buyer or a seller was not interested in raising funds and creating or fostering that innovation. So in a way, the lifeline has been throttled in the year 2023. And that's also one of the reasons why I'm happy that we have been able to remain the same, at least. We have not, we have not observed a degrowth in overall business. From a platform perspective, one of the other interesting things is on the PC platform side, we have observed a rapid decline in the number of players playing on PC. Console remained same, which is again a good indicator because the ARPUs are on console is typically on the higher side. But mobile is again interesting. Even though the revenues dipped by $1 billion, the overall player base increased. Now this with the previous slide indicates that a lot of the new users are getting onboarded onto a mobile platform, which is again a good industry and a good news for the industry overall. Now looking at the Western markets in little bit more detail, match genre, social casino genre, and strategy are the three biggest genres in the Western markets. Now the Western markets typically include US, Germany, UK, Spain, I think these are the four major, and France probably. These are the five major markets in the Western hemisphere from a revenue standpoint, of course. If you look at match and social casino, two interesting things happened in 2023. On the match side, Royal Match, which is a new game, has has beaten the record of Candy Crush, which has been like the long-term king of the match genre and overall mobile gaming genre itself. On the bottom right-hand side, you can see the graph. For the last 6-7 months, Royal Match has been beating Candy Crush hands down. There's no question in terms of overall revenue. So the orange is Royal Match and Candy Crush is represented in the blue ones. On the social casino side of things, Monopoly Go was a big success that was launched last year, which indicates that the power of IP along with a good core mechanic along with social gameplay is fundamental and core to improving your overall or engaging your overall user base, and you can achieve significant heights in a very short period of time. So that's great news compared to the other genres where we are seeing decline in overall revenues. Although simulation and other genres are not declining significantly, but that is something that fueled the match and social casino. The excitement for me, at least from the looking forward perspective, is that there is still a room for innovation. There is still a room for players to get into the top 10 charts of any mobile game studio, which otherwise is the common belief that it is very hard to break into. And this is something that is quite exciting, that innovation is not stifled despite the competition that is present in the market today. On the PC and console side, you can look at the major markets. North America here is the biggest market with $31 billion of overall revenues from the PC and console market, now both of them combined. APAC is the second biggest, of course, led by China, which contributes roughly around 50 to 60% of the PC console market of the 30.6 billion. Europe is again the third market, and Middle East and LATAM, as I mentioned, are growing and emerging markets, which also needs to be paid attention. From a monetization model perspective, PC console business typically had a late adoption of live services games, but we are seeing that in 2023, of all the games that were launched, 59% of the revenues were currently being generated by live services games, which is a significant testament to how the free-to-play or pay or live services model on PC console is getting a significant traction going forward, and we'll see this trend going forward as well. Just to give you more highlight on the monetization model, premium is still dominant on both the platforms, but look at the kind of microtransaction led model on both PC and console, which is close to around 33% across the years, and it is not declining at all. Which also means to say that if you are a PC console developer, you need to pay attention to what are the best practices on free to play and live services model and how you can successfully adopt it. Now, this was the first part of our discussion where we discussed what the market is, how we are moving towards, what are some of the things which is exciting. Now let's look at from this as a context to look at some of the things that could be. Now this slide here gives a broad indication as to the mental framework that we would otherwise use to identify how a new technology would be adopted, how the new technology would be monetized, and how we can see growth in those platforms. So if you look at the overall gaming evolution, of course, India started at mobile free-to-play. I'm not talking about India in general, I'm talking about in global terms. Initially there was arcade, then came the console revolution, and there was this console wars between Sega, Nintendo, and a bunch of other players, and then still it's going in some shape or form with Microsoft and Sony. And then you have early handheld devices, games getting started distributed on PC, then Steam came through digital distribution, then we had the mobile revolution with the first premium model mobile revolution, and then free to play, etc., etc. And then we are seeing towards more immersive environments with AR and VR technologies. One of the things that I would want you to focus on across all these technologies is, in some way, shape or form, there were two critical factors that were being hit. One is how a new technology is democratizing either the development process or the consumption process, or how immersive the games are becoming more and more. Right? So these are the two fundamental frameworks to view any new technology that comes into picture, and form your own view as to how you feel this particular tech can help me or other studios or the industry overall. These are sort of the laundry list of items which we believe are some of the emerging trends and can fundamentally change either the democratic way of development and consumption or the immersiveness in the environment. The first element is social. Of course, social is very important. By social, I mean a lot of the social gameplays, some of the mechanics that you have seen in your games and have loved it, some of the experiences that enables you to play with your social influencers and other key opinion leaders, etc. The second is user generated. Of course, it's led by Roblox and UEFN today, Fortnite of course. But I believe there's a huge array of these technologies which are basically democratizing the way people are actually making games. Hype is a good example on mobile. Transmedia, of course, it has been the talk of the town last year. I'll show you a couple of slides as to how the recent launch of Fallout series increased the overall MAUs by 600% of what it was before. And then you have enabling ecosystems, payments ecosystems, cross-platform, how developers are thinking about creating games on multiple platforms, VR, cloud, Gen AI, and Web3. So let's dive deeper into social first. There are 4 key elements to social. The first is social spaces. You can imagine this to be an example of a room which is created specifically for Travis Scott concert in Fortnite, or any of the concerts on Roblox and other platforms. So this is the concept of social spaces. Hardcore gamers or mid-core gamers probably would recognize this as dedicated servers for them, right? So that's social space for them. They could chat, interact, do multiple things before actually making their own gameplay and plan and execute it. Play with influencers is again becoming a critical theme of 2023. Multiple reports suggest the same as well. Sharing game screenshots on your social media handles and dedicated social media channels, etc., is also becoming quite popular. Brand marketing, etc., are also becoming quite significant, especially today on Roblox, but also eventually on Fortnite and other platforms going forward. This second point is on UGC. Now I'm just touching the base, please bear with me, a lot of ground to cover. So on the UGC side, there's a mental framework that you can actually use to view or to form a view as to how this UGC platform is created. On the verticalized platform, you have the same genre of games. Something like a Skyrim or Halo would typically suit this theme. And on the horizontal side, you have different genres of games. So on Roblox or Fortnite, you have multiple different genres of games that are present and experiences that can be enjoyed by users. On the horizontal slide, you have game first, which is UGC content created around a particular game code loop, just to enhance or modify the experience of the players for that particular game. And on the right hand side, you have platform first, which is, it just is a platform for you to create any and every experiences, either has no core gameplay of its own, or if it has, you can create any experiences, or you have the freedom to create any experiences on those platforms. Some of the great examples are Overwolf, Fortnite, of course, Roblox, Minecraft, Halo, Skyrim, Roll20, Lightforge, multiple different ways in which these platforms are different, and it's important for you to understand how these economies are built and how you can develop some of these products and experiences on these platforms to monetize your content better. Transmedia, of course, the talk of the town is the launch of Fallout series on Amazon Prime. Just look at the graph. Prior to the Fallout series, before April 10th, the overall MAUs was somewhere around 10K, 5K, 6K. It has shot up to somewhere around, on average, it has shot around 600, 700% globally. But some of the other interesting things that are happening in the transmedia domain is some of the game first IPs are now getting converted into movies. So some of the notable examples are Borderlands, Sonic, Minecraft, Ghosts of Tsushima, Legend of Zelda. All of these are some of the things that you can potentially enjoy in 2024 and probably in 2025. This is again a significant example of Cyberpunk, which is Edge Runners, which was a series based off Cyberpunk. Look at the MAU growth on September of 22 when it was launched, and typically on average, transmedia or any of the launch of the TV series or a movie typically get you a 40 to 50% rise in overall MAUs. Now it depends on how well the movie is executed, how well it is engaging the audience, how it is able to create a nostalgia effect, etc. But depending on that, on average a 40-50% MAU uplift on a game can be created. So game developers are now deliberately thinking of a transmedia strategy and a transmedia approach on how they can reach out to multiple users across multiple distribution platforms, across multiple content types. Important thing to note about the top new PC console launches, of the top 250, 54% had an IP integration or an IP franchise in 2023. Of the top 50, 80% of those games actually have an IP integration. So it's a significantly important transition that the industry has been observing and potentially will observe going forward. The next is payments ecosystem. I think it is relevant for a lot of emerging markets discussions, or maybe even developed markets, primarily with the advent of web shops. I'm sure there are some sessions in the later half that you would potentially get to see more about the importance of web shops. But on web shops or direct to consumer model as a larger umbrella ecosystem, Playtika, Stillfront, Scopely, Moonactive, Supercell have already started generating significant sums of revenue, and these are all publicly available information, of course, or discussed in a blog forums and things like that. They are anywhere generating from 25-30% to as high as 50-60% of their overall revenues. Now, if you're generating $1 billion of revenue a year, just Apple Pay Store commission, you would save somewhere around 90 to 100 million in bottom line directly if you just adopt some of these web shop technologies. So if you are an established game developer, you should definitely explore some of these direct to pay consumer systems that are already available in the market today. The second is real-time payments. Of course, UPI has shown or led the way potentially in that front. India is leading the charge with 42% of the global real-time payments globally, second only to Brazil. I think you would see a lot of the UPI technologies being adopted either through ONDC or other platforms and enabling game commerce and other aspects of gaming or to the gaming audience from the retail distributors or service providers. Buy now, pay later also potentially could be a significant growth driver. I've not seen any great example, but BNPL is also something which is significantly increasing the overall credit markets globally. On cross-platform side, just to give you some example, Homa, Scopely, Roblox have all tried cross-platform. Just to give you one example, Roblox last year in October launched on PlayStation. It is now the 5th largest MAU player base on PlayStation already in the last 6, 7, 8 months of operations. There's an immense value that you can tap into if you have a good game. Try to see if it fits onto the PC console market, try to see if it fits onto the Nintendo Switch market, try to see if it fits onto the VR market, and see how you can leverage the IP and the gameplay that you have created across multiple platforms. Homa, of course, have launched 6 games on Nintendo Switch as well, which again shows the diversification and the areas in which publishers are willing to play when it comes to cross-platform. Some indicators, if you look at the average engagement of just having on 3 or more platforms, your engagement increases from 4 hours just on one platform to 11 hours 20 minutes on 3 platforms on average. I mean, that's average number based on Newzoo report, of course. So there's a 300% of overall increase in terms of engagement as you increase the overall platform. So you should not only view it as an additional revenue stream, but you should also view it as an additional engagement and monetization stream. On the VR side, 23 was a mixed bag. Apple Pro headsets were not received with the appreciation that we had hoped for, but we still believe that this is the first iteration of VR and the technology is there yet. So the technology is there. We need to create new content, which we are already seeing with the rise of free to play on VR, with the rise of multiplayer models on VR, which was typically unheard of, right? Because you need to have a critical threshold of player base in VR to enable multiplayer ecosystem, and then they need to adopt that particular game also. But we are already seeing that gradual shift happening in the VR, which gives us no doubt that VR is gonna take off, and this is exactly what is also reported in the overall VR headsets sold. Eventually that will boil down to consumer markets or consumer spends on games and other digital products on the VR side. Cloud gaming is another important aspect, specifically again for emerging markets, but not necessarily so. We are observing a significant growth rate in the cloud ecosystem. Of course, Stadia shutdown has been a major talk of the town when it comes to cloud, and naysayers of cloud probably would give Stadia as the first example. But there are companies like now GG and others who are creating good ecosystem. They are profitable and they have been able to create enabling ecosystem over and above the existing platforms where the games are distributed. So cloud is probably one of the other ways in which the games could be distributed and enjoyed even for players with low end spec devices. I'm not sure who of you are gamers, but the first week I tried Call of Duty Warzone, the week it was launched in the month of March. My reaction was I was not able to play because the servers were all messed up. I was using a high-end device, but even then I could not play on an iOS device. I think a lot of these problems could eventually be solved by cloud. That's my hope. On Gen AI, very quickly, I think there are three key constraints that as a developer you're always trying to grapple with. One is cost, time, and scope. So if your scope is big, you cannot optimize for cost or time simultaneously. So if you are to reduce time, your cost needs to increase. You need to hire a lot of manpower, a lot of tool sets, etc., etc. So the bottom idea is you cannot simultaneously optimize for all three aspects of gaming. What game development process? What Gen AI essentially does is it gives you an array of tools which you can then use to optimize all three aspects of it. It would help you reduce cost, time, and probably help you expand the overall scope. There are two things that will eventually happen from this. One, you would see a AAA quality game coming out of an indie studio of 4 or 5 people. Eventually, I'm not saying now, but eventually in the next 2 years' time, you would see that. And otherwise, what you could also see is you can see a 1-member, 2-member team creating a diverse array of multiple mini games, which will then engage some of the core loops or core audience in your own game. So either of the two, the scope would increase either in diversifying your experiences on a core loop, or it could increase your overall expansion of the core loop itself. When it comes to game creation, we are already at level 4 of the adoption process, which is partial Gen AI pipeline. Multiple studios globally have adopted 1 or 2 pipelines, which are giving them either concept art or art processes, or probably one line which requires very minimal effort to sort of develop or finish the art production and other things. I'm sure you would have some of the sessions with Lakshya and other people who would probably touch upon this aspect as well. And on the game development side, I think, and the integration of Gen AI into games directly so that the experiences can be very native and individualistic rather than targeting the wider audience base and having the similar experiences for a cross audience. We are already in the procedural content phase on the AI side, but we would start seeing, and I'm already seeing some of the companies which have started to adopt live feedback mechanism within the game, which can then create unique experience for the gamers based on their previous choices. The first genre which I believe will get a good deployment of generative AI is the narrative genre. A lot of the things can actually be done, are already being done with the help of generative AI. These are some of the tools, but more important than the tools, you should look out for product websites like Product Hunt, Future Tools, Easy with AI, etc. to research what all products are being available right now and how you can potentially deploy some of these products in your content pipeline and production processes. Right, so this brings down to the summary and conclusion, well within time. So what are we saying? I mean, from a big picture perspective, I think we are quite bullish on the overall gaming ecosystem. We would reach $200 billion mark by year 2025. We are bullish about free-to-play in PC and console markets. We believe Latin America, MENA, and India, probably with some of those markets, and we're already seeing some trends, would be the markets that people will talk about for some years in the future. Social gameplay, UGC, and generative AI can potentially change how users are experiencing your game and how they are interacting with other players. Payments ecosystem is an important aspect. It not only helps you generate additional revenue, but also help you engage users better with direct to shops, which then enables you to create your own experiences for highly engaged whales, etc. Cross-platform and transmedia again are very important concepts. Both transcends the horizon of the traditional gaming. We are already at a stage where people are adopting these techniques and tips. So do go out, look out what is available on other media formats. Just experience it to see how you can potentially leverage some of those technologies. And VR, of course, is something which will pick up. With this, I close my session. Happy to get any answers to any questions if you have.
Any questions? Questions? Sorry. Any questions? Yeah. Bye.
In the meanwhile, if you like to have the deck, please do reach out to me on LinkedIn or WhatsApp. I'm available. We'll share the deck with you.
Yeah, Dinesh.
Hey, thank you so much for this presentation. Quite insightful, I would say. So I have like two parts of the question. One is you mentioned in one of your slides that especially in mobile, users are increasing from 22 to 23, but still we see the reduction in the total revenue.
Yeah.
What could be the reason behind that? And second thing, when you say mobile users are increasing, are those like free to play game users or play to earn scenario?
Sure. So two questions. I'll handle the second one first. I don't think it is pay to win audience or skill based real money gaming audience, primarily because the quantum of that audience on a global level is fairly limited. So when we're talking about a 2.2 billion user figure, I think that percentage would be very small. So these are a rise in free to play. Giving a little context to the first one, there are a couple of factors, right? The audience is increasing primarily because people are targeting India, Indonesia, Brazil, Africa, and some of the other markets which are now essentially getting inducted more and more into the gaming ecosystem. They have traditionally been, very limited percentage of our overall population still is a gaming audience. So there's a lot more that we could achieve going forward. On the monetization side, there are a couple of macro factors that happened in 23. As I mentioned, funding environment was very low. So people were very conservative. They were pushing for profitability more than growth in revenues. 23 also showed, look, when investments are happening, things are rosy. You can spend N number of dollars in marketing spends, right? But when investments are not happening, you immediately surface problems like IDFA, etc. that has been there. So scalability on iOS has been significantly hit with the IDFA deprecation with ATT, new ATT, iOS 14, post iOS 14. That along with funding, I think, are the two key reasons. Then there are other macro factors like rising inflation in the US, slowing and stagnation in some of the major gaming economies on the consumer market side. I think those are some of the major reasons why we observed, funnily enough, no decline. So very happy to see that.
Hello sir, a very insightful talk. So I had two questions. First was your thoughts on web GPU and how it would scale on the VR side, right? And second is you mentioned cloud gaming. So did you try the Geo cloud gaming system, and what are your thoughts on it? Will it scale in India?
Very difficult to make a prediction about any particular platform in any particular country. But in general, from a trend perspective, we are very bullish about cloud in general. I think it really can solve a lot of pain points that a user and consumer faces today. So I will leave it at that when it comes to cloud. When it comes to scaling WebGL and WebGPU games, I think it can be scaled much more seamlessly than apps. The experience is also similar to the app environment without requiring you to install, and that requires the skill and the development capability to develop such an experience which doesn't require you to install or doesn't require you to have high-end devices and can be streamed over the internet. So yeah, I mean, it could fundamentally be scaled directly through any website, and how it can be scaled through SEO, through paid marketing, through targeting users across influencer marketing campaigns or performance marketing campaigns. Whatever is your preferred model, whatever you're comfortable with, you can scale WebGL and WebGPU game. I would say WebGPU more than WebGL. Those games could be fundamentally scaled because those are fundamentally made for higher engagement rather than HTML5, which lacks engagement. It's early, but I do see a lot of good developers deploying that technology, creating immersive products. It will take a little bit of time before we see the revenues that we are seeing, at least on the VR and cloud gaming side today.
Yeah.
5 billion, 6 billion.
Yeah. Last question.
Sure. Hi Saikat, I'm Madhur here. So you mentioned about the impact of potentially what a movie or a video sort of content can do for gaming.
Yeah.
My question is around, do you think the reverse is also true, and do we have anything to back that up? Potentially what I'm trying to say is, do we see any impact of focusing games for existing IPs in the movie sector? I know there are some, but why I'm asking this is specifically from a point of view of a small, probably a gaming company which is coming up, and when the investments are drying up, could that be one target section that you could look for?
I think so, yes, because if you look at some of the notable franchise like John Wick and the likes of it, I think there are some discussions where some people are building games on top of it. It's essentially a movie first IP, which is then getting deployed into games. So the potential exists both ways, but we are not into the movie making business, so we might as well focus on how we can create IPs which then can be leveraged using the other formats of media which we are not comfortable with, and you would need a partner essentially to do this.
So would you say that having the original IP is the key rather than targeting other?
Of course, that has always been the key. I mean, look at Disney. I think they earn more revenues from IP licensing than product sales. So yeah.
Thank you.